Konnichiwa! Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to another Motorsport TV GT preview show for the Super GT in Japan. Well, we're all in slightly different locations for this one, with it being the end of round 6 and into round 7. We've kind of gone a little bit native. I'm currently in the Davy Crockett Ranch of Disneyland Paris. Bruno has returned home. Bruno Spengler, our guest. But don't worry, folks, Jamie Klein is still very much alive and kicking in Japan. Great to see you all. I'm Jake Sanson. With me is Jamie Klein and Bruno Spengler. Great to be with you all. And guys, welcome to the show, particularly Bruno, your first time appearing on the program. How are you feeling? How's things?
Thank you, man. Yeah, thanks for having me here. Everything's good, man. I got home after the last race in Sugo. Last weekend I was racing in Red Bull Ring, so I just got back home, and tomorrow I'm traveling to Italy for my next race in the Italian GT at Mugello. So very busy times, but enjoying a lot because I'm driving every week pretty much, so that's cool.
The racing driver that never stops. We love it. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And Jamie Klein, my co-commentator for Super GT, is with me as well. Jamie, what a fantastic couple of weeks it's been, even since the race at Sugo. It's been a fantastic race, and then it's been rather a busy aftermath as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, drama all the way, on track, off the track, afterwards as well. I mean, we had both class winners being disqualified after the race. If you were with us, you would have seen the number 17 Real Racing Honda and the number 18 Up Garage Honda taking the spoils in their respective classes, but both of them thrown out by the technical inspectors post race. So we ended up with new winners. In GT500 it was the number 8 ARTA Honda of Tomoki Nojiri and Toshiki Oyu. In GT300 it was the Saitama Toy Pet Green Brave Toyota Supra, which ran out of fuel on the line to be pipped by the Up Garage Honda, but then the joy turning to despair, turning back to joy hours later when the news came through that Up Garage had a ride height violation, 0.5 millimeter, I'm told, so almost nothing in it. And then the 17 was thrown out about an hour later because of a skid block being worn too much, which was the same thing that happened to Ronnie Quintarelli and Sugo Matsuda at Suzuka. So 2 races in a row that we lost a podium finisher because of a skid block that wasn't quite as thick as it should have been after the race. So yeah, plenty to talk about. Naoki Yamamoto's big crash as well. We'll get onto that in a moment. Obviously, led to another red flag and a lot of discussions as to about safety and whether whether there's scope to try and make things easier for the drivers with 2 high profile accidents now this year. So yeah, a lot to get through.
Yeah, we've definitely got a lot to talk about this time, haven't we? First of all, turning to Bruno, obviously you're with the Steady BMW M14 this year. It's your first year in Super GT, and this was your first time ever racing on the Sportsland Sugo circuit. It's a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a cool circuit, and for me it was a tough start of the weekend because we had a technical issue with the power steering in free practice. So my teammate did the first half of free practice, then we started to have an issue. And so I couldn't do any laps before going into qualifying. So I went into Q2, no idea about the track. So for qualifying 2 was like my free practice, actually. So I had like 4 or 5 laps in qualifying and then went into the race with 5 laps preparation. So a little bit of warm-up on Sunday morning, but still I didn't feel totally familiar with the track before going into the race. So I learned the track during the race, actually. But it's a really cool track. I mean, the last corner is very, very challenging. Also, it's very tough for the tires because it has a lot of high load for a long time. So you're going to make sure you don't overpush the tires. Otherwise, you run out of tires before the end of the stint. So it's a very challenging one, but it's interesting. I like this track. It's good fun. I mean, so far the tracks I've discovered in Japan, they are really, really cool.
So let's talk a little bit then about the significance of what happened in Sugo and the aftermath of it. Of course, we talked a little bit about the disqualification, Jamie, after the race at Sportsland Sugo, Tsugokoshi and Matsushita losing their victory. Their disqualification actually means not only do they lose the win, they also lose the championship because now mathematically they cannot get the championship win back again. All that the NDDP squad need to do, Katsumasa Chiyo and Mitsunori Takaboshi, is basically score a 10th place finish or better from Autopolis or Motegi, and they knock the Ostema Real Racing Honda out of the water. That is disastrous as disqualifications go.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
we had Matsushita and Tsukoshi provisionally on 49 points, which would have put them, I think that was 1 point off the lead, as the standings were when we went off air. But now they're way down in 10th position on 29 points, losing the 20 that they earned, and the number 3 Nissan getting 1 extra point to lead by 2 now from the Tom's Toyota. But I mean, it was a great performance, great opening stint from Matsushita. Just to sort of recap how the race was won on the road, at least. Essentially, Matsushita's in lap was absolutely phenomenal. Took 3 seconds out of Nojiri in the ARTA Honda alone, and then combined with a pit stop that was 8 seconds quicker, that got them ahead on the road. Then there was a bit of a reshuffle with the red flags. Koshi led at the time of the red flag from Oyu, but Oyu was on softer tyres, or at least tyres that were going off a little bit faster. After the red flag, Oyu managed to get ahead, but then he couldn't pull away. And then with 8 laps to go, I think it was, Koshi, who'd been kind of shadowing him, had the better tyres for the race. And don't forget, they had the stage 1 fuel flow restrictor as well, which really is quite an achievement to overcome that against a car that was running with no fuel flow restrictor. So in the end, Tsukoshi got back ahead, and that seemed to be the victory in the bag for the 17 crew until the disqualification later on. But it was interesting to hear Nojiri's comments after the news came through of ARTA inheriting the win, saying basically, well, we were beaten by a car that had a fuel flow restrictor, and that's not really good enough. So I think still a lot of soul searching to do at ARTA. Okay, they've got the first win for the 8 crew, which had been kind of troubled throughout much of the season, second in a row for the team, but not really the way they would have wanted to do it either.
And we talk about the disqualification of the Astemo real car, but Bruno, the disqualification of the Up Garage Honda, I mean, if they had been able to keep that win, the championship would essentially have been pretty much over for everybody else in GT300. But now that disqualification has been upheld, the Satamoto Yopet Green Brave team are only 10 points ahead of them and you. So that kind of blows the championship wide open again.
Yeah, it does. I mean, when we saw the Honda Up Garage being in front, even if they would finish second without Green Brave running out of fuel on the line, even if they would finish second, it would look very difficult for us for the rest of the championship, because next race, we're still going to have 60 kilos on board. So it was kind of a difficult one to take. But then when we heard about disqualification, definitely it's going to make the championship very interesting for the last 2 races. I think everything is possible. So, yeah, I memean, I feel sorry for them because these kind of things are difficult to take. But on the other hand, it makes the championship still open for us. And it's a good thing in the end for us, for sure.
So where the lay of the land now looks as a result of that, Nojiri and Oyu getting the victory in GT500 in the ARTA Mugen, they are now just 19 points off the lead of the championship. Second for Sugio Matsuda and Ronnie Quintarelli puts them just 11 points off the lead, and 9 behind Tsuboi and Miyata in the Tom's Toyota that were now classified as 7th, so decent points for them under the circumstances. And it definitely gives us a really entertaining end to the season, because there are now 19 points. In fact, no, there are 20 points covering the top 10 crews in GT500 with just 2 races to go. So it definitely makes things entertaining. In GT300, we have the Satamoto Yopet Green Brave car taking the lead of the standings as a result of the victory in Sugo, but they're only 10 points ahead of the Up Garage NSX and the BMW study car of Seiji Ara and Bruno Spengler. Now, obviously, Bruno, you yourself are not in a position to win the championship because of your ongoing commitments, but I'm guessing that, your modus operandi from here on in is to support Seiji to get the job done.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like you said, there were 3 races I couldn't participate this year, unfortunately. But for sure now, my goal is definitely to make Seiji win the title, and also to get the team championship to BMW Team Study. That would be very, very important for them. They are working very well and very hard since years, and they would deserve this championship so much as a team. And so does Seiji Ara. He would deserve to win the championship as well as a driver. So that's my mission, and I'll do everything I can to make the win, of course.
Well, let's talk about some of the ramifications that were not on the podium from the last race. Jamie, obviously, during the race, we saw a monumental accident for Naoki Yamamoto. Some footage has emerged online as to exactly what triggered the incident, and it is, as we thought, triggered by essentially trying to work through traffic during a pit stop phase, and Yamamoto sadly tagged and into the wall. Unfortunately, he's now been told he's going to have to miss the final 2 races of the season.
Yeah, I think it is worth sort of explaining in a little bit more detail how the crash unfolded for those that haven't seen the footage, although it is on YouTube. You can find it pretty easily. It's been all over social media as well. But essentially what happened was Tepe Natori was ready to come into the pits. At of course, you have the pit lane entrance immediately after the long final right-hander at Sugo. So Natori wanted to come in, but he actually had Kenta Yamashita in the rookie racing Toyota coming up on his right, essentially blocking his path. So you can actually tell as Natori moves to the right, he checks up because he sees Yamashita's Toyota there. But what he presumably didn't see was the fact that Naoki Yamamoto was tucked right into Yamashita's slipstream. So, of course, Natori thinks he just needs to let one car go and then he needs to duck for the pit lane immediately, but he probably isn't aware that there was another car right there. He needs to get into the pit lane because he's been called into the pits. And that's how, unfortunately, he just tagged the left rear corner of Naoki Yamamoto's car, which was obviously then pitched into the barriers at speed. And obviously just an unprotected Armco there because it's, not really, it's straight basically. It's a bit like Nitsunori Takaboshi's crash at Fuji last year. So we had the news just earlier this week that Yamamoto, initially it seemed like he had escaped anything too serious because there was some reports in the media that he was checked out of hospital the same day, which was accurate, but then we subsequently found out he was readmitted to more of a specialist hospital. And there, I'm going to have to check my notes for this one, he was diagnosed with an atlantoaxial subluxation. Essentially, the upper 2 vertebrae of the neck are out of alignment and also had damage to his spinal cord. So quite a serious impact in the end. So in light of those circumstances, it's entirely understandable that he would have to sit out the remaining races at Autopolis and Motegi. So in his place, we'll have Iori Kimura coming into the car. He was on standby for Toshiki Oyu earlier in the year, wasn't needed in the end for ARTA, but now he will be getting his first GT500 starts under his belt. Obviously now Yamamoto is out of the title hunt. It's only Tadasuke Makino in that number 100 car that can win it. So Kimura will be supporting Makino's title bid for the last 2 races. So, obviously we all hope for a speedy recovery for Yamamoto so he can be back for next year. But in the meantime, all eyes will be on Iori Kimura as Yamamoto's substitute.
So that would be an interesting subplot going into the final 2 races. We also have an interesting subplot for the 2024 season, which is all around Michelin. Bruno, you've just been given word that Michelin is going to be staying in GT300 next season. That's obviously a real positive for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely, first of all, I would love to continue in Super GT in Japan. As of today, I don't know exactly my program for next year, but I think I should know it very soon. And definitely the highest on the wish is to continue in Super GT in Japan because I think it's an awesome championship and I really love it. And now that I get to know all the tracks, almost all the tracks, I don't know Fuji, but knowing all the tracks would be great to do a second year with a bit more experience. And also, as you said, it's a great news to know that Michelin will be staying in GT300 because they are stopping GT500. This is very, very positive news for us. Also, if Michelin is there focusing mainly on the GT300, this will be a great help for the performance, I'm sure.
Now, one of the things that we actually wanted to talk to you about regarding this, obviously, you were the DTM champion a few years back in its golden era, if you like, and I think there's still quite a lot of us, me included, who are still bitterly frustrated that the whole sort of Super GT DTM combination was so short-lived. It was a fabulous concept. I think everybody was really excited about it, and it proved to be just as exciting as we all hoped it was. You've been there during the golden era of DTM. You're there in Super GT now. And obviously, you also raced this car in IMSA, the GT3 M4. So what is it about this car that makes it such a good all-rounder? I mean, what is it that really brings the good stuff out of the woodwork with this particular machine?
Oh, the M4 GT3, I think, is it's a very good car for a lot of different tracks. There is really, it can do kind of everything. It's good in fast corners. It's also pretty reactive in slow speed corners. So I think it's as you say, it's a good all around car. It can do a lot of things. It's also quite good in the rain. So I think there is it's a great car to race with. And it's also for the reliability, it's very good. Like we've done long distance races without, I mean, I'm knock on wood, but not having any big issues with it. So I think that's why it's a great package to race in, and pretty much everywhere in the world. That's also something new for me actually, because when I used to race in DTM, you were only racing that car in the DTM series. Sometimes I was doing some GT3 races or GTE races in Daytona, for example, next to my DTM races, or so you had to adapt to the car. And now for me this year, it's new to race the same car in a lot of different championship, which is cool because you get to learn the car very well and know the car very well and race with different tires, different teams and different tracks. So it's good fun. It's very challenging. I like it.
And you've only been in Super GT for this first season. You've already started talking about 2024, which obviously means we've got you. We've clearly got something that you like. What is the big comparison then with the DTM in its heyday, when it was going to be up against Super GT, and now that you're in the world of Super GT? What sort of comparisons can you draw from it? How does it compare?
So what I said is because I was on DTM this weekend, I raced in the GT Masters this weekend in Red Bull Ring, so I saw the DTM. Of course, they were racing in the same weekend, and what I find in Super GT is that for me, Super GT nowadays, it's very similar to the golden era of DTM in the past. Somehow Super GT kept that level, that professionalism, also the atmosphere with the fans. I mean, last time I've seen so many fans like as in Super GT was a few years back in DTM. So for me, Super GT is really on the level of the golden era in DTM in the past. It's just a little bit of a different format with two classes, two drivers. But still, I mean, Super GT manages to keep that level. And I think in nowadays, that's very, very nice, very impressive. And I think that's why so many drivers want to go to Super GT. And that's why I really hope that I can keep racing there as long as possible, because I think it's a great series and it's so much fun to race there. Also, I would say what's better even than DTM in the past is that tire competition for the manufacturer. This is very impressive, because sometimes you can make big differences, depending on the conditions, depending on the temperature. You can see a car all of a sudden shining, and then you can see the other car really struggling, and then the conditions change slightly, and then the other car is again very much quicker, and the other guy struggles. You can do a lot of stuff with strategy. You can do a lot of stuff with tire choices. And I think this is it's a very challenging parameter that you don't have in other series. And I think that's very cool.
It's very exciting for us to watch it, of course. And I think for the reasons you pointed out. So from our side, it's great that you have that same burning passion and desire for it that we do. I mean, the BMW, it's already going through its development of the Evo package now. So that's looking quite exciting from our side. With you being right in the middle of it, what can we expect from that program for the future seasons? What do we think we're going to get out of this car that we haven't already seen?
Yeah, so I think I've done most of the testing so far for it, and the car had already is a very good baseline. The car we have now is already a very good base, but there are a few things we're working on, which is like drivability, to make the car maybe slightly easier in general to drive. I would say this is maybe the main focus, and maybe also working a little bit on general tire life for the car to be able to have maybe slightly more consistent stints with all kinds of tires. So this is, I would say, the two key points we are working on, and it's going in a very good direction. We still have a little bit of time. The car is coming out or the Evo package is coming out in 2025, but we are on a very good way, and this is the direction we want to take for 2025. I guess I think the homologation is somewhere spring 2024, I guess. So we still have a little bit of time before the homologation for the big stuff. And then after, it's going to be focusing a little bit more about like details, software and stuff like that until the end of 2024.
All sounds really exciting, and we really hope that you're still going to be a part of that in 2024 in Japan. I think you've already got the bug, and we'd love to see you continue that, so it'd be fantastic for us. We obviously now need to look ahead to Autopolis. Jamie, the GT500 battle, 10 cars separated by 20 points. 20 points is available for the win. It's half the regular ballast that we are used to having, so this is definitely going to be a race to watch.
Yeah, I think actually one thing that needs to be kind of highlighted is the disqualification for the 17 car. Paradoxically, could be quite bad news for the championship leading number 3 car, and that's because the extra point that they got as a result has tipped them on to 51 points, and therefore they will still have a stage 1 fuel flow restrictor at Autopolis. If they were on 50 kilos, they would just have the 50 kilos of weight. They would be right on the bubble, but instead they will be the only car in the field with the fuel flow restrictor. So I think we can predict, unless it rains, of course, because we know how good the Michelin tyres are, but if it's a normal dry weekend, number 3 car is probably going to struggle just for that reason. Like you say, we've still got the 1 kilo per point scored, so there's still going to be some advantage for the lighter cars. I think the 24 Kondo Racing Nissan, we've talked about them quite a lot this year, but hasn't quite happened for them for various reasons. But last year they were very strong at Autopolis, finished on the podium, probably went wrong with the strategy, but had the pace to win. Of course, it's a 450k race this time, so that means it's longer, more room for tyre strategy, and also I think we're going to see a bit more of who has the best fuel mileage, because we didn't see that so much at Sugo, and all the manufacturers had their Spec 2 engines, their updated engines, but because of the safety cars, red flags, and Sugo not being such a power sensitive circuit, we didn't really see too much about who had the upper hand. But I think at Autopolis we're going to get a good idea. I think you've got to look at the 17 as well. I mean, they won last year. They're going to be out for revenge. They're obviously going to be very careful with the skid block, I'm sure, to make sure they don't get thrown out again. But I think, the 17, the 24, the cars we saw up there last year, I think the 100 might struggle with Kimura having his first race. But obviously they should be up there at least in qualifying. I think it's shaping up to be a really interesting one. But I think for the championship, it's a big chance for the 36 and the 23 to kind of claw back some ground on the number 3 before we head to the final race at Motegi.
Yeah, some really interesting talking points in GT500 going into Autopolis. In GT300, Bruno, the title is alive and kicking after the checkered flag at Sugo. I think a lot of crews probably thought that with the UB Garage taking 3 wins in one season, that was it. Game over. This disqualification obviously blows it open. 60 kilos of ballast for you guys on board at Autopolis. How confident are you guys going into that? Is that going to be manageable?
I think, 60 kilo is definitely a little bit better than 100, but it's still a big amount, let's say. I've never driven Autopolis, so it's going to be a new circuit for me again. But driving it a little bit on the simulator, there is a lot of corners, and I think it can be a weight sensitive track because it's very, very technical. I think it also goes a little bit up and down, and so I believe that the 60 kilo are still going to hurt us a little bit. But as you mentioned earlier, it's a 450 kilometer race, and I'm not sure, but I think it's the first time in Autopolis that they're doing a 450 kilometer race. Is that correct?
I think it is.
Yeah,
yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this opens again everything because everybody's going to have to think about a interesting strategy there. So because it's longer race, I think maybe even with this weight, we have maybe a little bit more chance to do something during the race because the strategy is going to play a big role. Tire strategy, when to stop, maybe safety car here and there. So I think with all these parameters, I think we still have a chance to score points or to score good points at least. And that's what we'll try to do.
It sounds really exciting in both classes, and I can't wait for that weekend. 14th and 15th of October, viewers. Put that in your diary, and of course, you can watch it all unfold here on Motorsport TV on the premium service. Do please join us for that, and you can go back, of course, and watch all of the 6 races that have already taken place in Super GT in 2023 as well. We are very excited. Bruno Spengler, thank you so much indeed for joining us on our preview show. It's been really great to hear your insight and to learn a bit more about your journey in 2023. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, guys.
And thanks again, Jamie. We'll obviously be getting our vocal cords ready in the commentary box for Autopolis.
Certainly will. It's going to be one that you definitely don't want to miss.
Yes, indeed. With 2 titles on the line and both wide open, it's definitely going to be the hottest ticket in town. 14th and 15th of October, right here on Motorsport TV. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you back again in Autopolis next month. From me, from Jake Sanson, from Jamie Klein, and from Bruno Spengler, thank you very much indeed for watching. Sayonara.